Everyone wants the perfect career, but rarely does it go that way. From AI flipping the table to a challenging job market, it's hard to know what decisions to make and what path you should follow. We're bringing together people leaders at companies of all shapes and sizes to share their perspectives, both big and small, on what paths you should follow and decisions you should make for your career. I'm Peter Zotto, founder and CEO of Trove, and this is Career Chess. For all intents and purposes, you're a chief people officer, right? You run people and culture, but you didn't start out in that world. Like, how did you start? How did you land to where you are now?
Started in the corporate world, yes, but I went right into finance. I was very much chasing the wrong things and wanted to just get corporate experience at the time. This was fresh out of college. I majored in psychology. I wanted to be a psychotherapist. I very much thought that was my path. And then through some real counseling work, I realized how draining that was, yet I was very intrigued with the corporate world and really understanding kind of workplaces and how they work and different industries. And so I took an opportunity in finance. I worked for a very small financial firm in Wellesley,
Cool.
and I started doing 401k recommendation and portfolio planning and the client interaction piece I got exposure to. I was miserable, but I was learning a lot about myself. I was very young, early in my career. From there, I went to another financial institution, still quite unhappy, but learned. Then from there, went into marketing, was a marketing analyst for a commercial brokerage firm. And then finally, my husband now, but boyfriend at the time, said, "You are so unhappy.
Yeah.
What are you doing? You wanted to be in psychiatry. You now have all this experience, but you're miserable." So he forced me to say, go after what you love, go after your passion, do something with that. You can't live your life like this. So that's when I embarked on the world of organizational development and psychology, which merges, the intersection of organizational leadership and the world of psychology, employee behavior. And it was like the stars aligned. That was my path. And so now I'm an organizational psychologist. I embarked on my first startup at Tivio and just dove right into all things HR, from enablement to recruiting to benefits to organizational development to restructuring, like everything. And I had a mentor at the time who was also my manager there. And he's now passed. And if it wasn't for him, there's no way I'd be sitting here today. There's no way I'd be at CloudZero. It just wouldn't happen. And so to your point, on the path and the connection, the power of that, I'm such a strong believer in that.
I love that journey, and I'm sorry to hear about your mentor. It's easy to forget, especially when you're young in your career, that a lot of times success comes through sort of a bunch of people rooting for you or lifting you up or recommending certain things
If
or
you're lucky.
connecting, right, if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And certainly not everybody's that lucky, even if they want to work that hard or if they want to have the opportunities that maybe you and I have had. I think you're right. Like, sometimes being in the right place matters far more than being really good or smart or whatever. Workplace psychologist, I haven't, like, is that how you refer? Okay.
Organizational psychology.
Okay. We've talked to plenty of people that are people leaders, some more sort of, I would consider maybe traditional HR benefits,
Sure.
et cetera, and some that are more sort of like organizational behavior. But I don't know, how does the psychology piece come into it, and how does that work with people that work in the organization, like your colleagues or your employees versus, I guess, maybe like an executive team? Like, where do you who do, who are your constituents?
My customers are the people. And I think to be a strong leader, not even in HR, I think in any role, you need to understand human behavior. You need to understand what triggers people to do certain things, to perform in a certain way, to communicate in a certain way, what triggers within the workplace or influencers causes people to be more productive, to feel more motivated, to be more inspired. And so you need to understand the psychology behind humans at work. And I think, and we'll probably get to this later on AI, but I think what that's doing in the best way is it's forcing human judgment to be much more front and center than it's ever been before. And that excites me a lot because there are, unfortunately, still bad leaders out there who don't really understand human behavior, don't take the time to connect with their people to understand how do you learn best, how do you communicate best, how do you collaborate best, and so forth. You need to understand that and how the mind works at work to be a great leader. And so that's one of the things, that's one of the ways I approach what I do every day. And that makes you a much more approachable leader, and it makes you a much more connected leader that can be at the intersection of driving business results, but also knowing how to motivate and engage a workplace to execute in the way you want them to.
There are leaders that drive, we've all worked for them in some capacity, whether it's young and it was a sports coach, right, or a team coach, or it was a job that you had where you had sort of a very command and control leader. And he or she, might say, hey, you have some autonomy, but really you don't have any autonomy, and it's my way or the highway. And there's some really prevalent ones out there that they're incredibly successful,
Sure.
right? Like Elon Musk is the one that comes to mind for me that is incredibly successful on most dimensions.
Sure.
Having said that, if you were to ask the people that worked for him, was he able to get the best out of them under pressure, or was it just sort of like a burn fast and for a very short amount of time? And so what's interesting is what we're saying, and I think what everybody has said to us in this podcast, is effectively getting to understand from an emotional perspective what makes that person tick in the organization. You will drive far better and more impactful results for the organization.
That's right.
Is that fair? Okay.
Very fair.
How do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, the Elon Musk example, I was thinking there are certain leadership types, like the more authoritative leader, actually does work for some people.
Yep.
But back to understanding human at work, you need to have the adaptability, the agility as a leader, as even a peer.
Yep.
Know your audience, right? And tweak your approach, knowing exactly how it's going to land to that individual. So don't mean to digress.
No, it's fine. This is great. Are there ways and clearly this, not only have you studied this, but you probably deploy it on a daily basis and work with for your, maybe your own team, and then help your team sort of spread the gospel there. Like, how do you, if I come to work for you, or if I'm part of your organization,
Yeah.
and I don't know, we don't interact on a fairly regular basis, but you have a one-on-one with you or something, like how do you figure out like what makes me motivated or tick such that
Sure.
you can, I don't know, manage me better, for instance?
Yeah, a variety of ways. First and foremost, you need to earn the trust.
Yep.
Earn the trust, the respect. Without that, no one will open up to you and no one will come to you. And so I've learned that quickly, especially from purely a hierarchical perspective, which I can't stand, by the way. And another nuance to AI is that's sort of breaking away. But
Okay.
um,
You mean specifically like,
like
CEO?
traditional
Okay. Yeah.
tree, right? And it can feel intimidating for
Sure.
some employees just based on that. And so every single day I try to break that. And the way you do that is just being genuine and proactively approaching people. Don't wait for them to come to you with a crisis or a conflict, but make time one-on-one, approach people proactively, especially if they're new hires, set the tone from the get-go. This is how the people team operates. This is how we work with the business and partner. This is what you can come to us for. Advisory, motivation, guidance on really anything, professional development, right? And so right off the bat, people understand, okay, this is a people team that genuinely care for the people. It's not just operations and benefits and hiring and firing. So you explain the role. So role clarity is huge. And then from there, it's action. So for example, we just launched an employee engagement survey. We do one every year. Then we do like pulses in between. And a lot of companies do that. They collect the feedback
Slip
and
checks.
do nothing about it. Not only that, they're not transparent with the results. And then one-on-ones, like I said, recognition, I'm a huge proponent of. It's a tremendous talent pillar. There is real ROI by doing that. People want to feel valued and appreciated coming to work. This goes back to the psychology, positive reinforcement, what makes people want to work hard. So recognition is a huge way as well. Breaks down the barriers through people analytics, through recognition moments. You start to see this kind of web of connection that starts to get born through that. So just be genuine, be real, and be proactive with approaching your people.
I think everything you said is amazing. Like, it doesn't cost a lot of effort or calories to say, hey, like, great job on this, to go out of your way and say whatever you're going to say. But we move so quickly sometimes, especially because we're in tech, that like
For sure.
it's often forgotten that, yes, maybe that was their job and they did it well, and that's like my favorite Mad Men quote, which is, that's what the money's for, is like, sure, that's what the money's for. It's why we pay somebody a salary. But at the end of the day, like you want to give people the kudos that they deserve, because that does tend to unlock them to do further things, right?
Yeah.
Some of the things that you're talking about feel, I'm just using this for effect, I don't buy this, but like are more woo-woo than maybe some corporate executives might want to buy into. And as an employee, I love it. But I wonder, are you faced with, it doesn't have to be now, but have you faced with executives or leadership teams or board members who are like, look, HR is here purely as a token, and because we need HR and that we need to do benefits and comp or whatever, but I don't really care about all that other stuff because whatever, right? Like, that's what the money's for. How do you deal with that? What's that like?
You need to be a business partner.
Okay, tell me about that.
You have to be a business partner at the core of who you are as an HR leader or any HR professional. You need to take the time to understand, how does the business function? How does work get done? What is every department's priorities, OKRs, whatever you want to call them?
Yep.
What matters to them? The product. You should be an expert at the product. Technically, market, everything. And once you get that, then you can have a real conversation and earn the right to have a seat at the table to be a contributor to making business decisions. And the beauty and what gets me jazzed up about the work that I do is you're a business partner, but you also really understand what makes employees productive and motivated to actually get stuff done. And when you merge the two through data, real data, not just fluff and, he said, she said, then people perk up.
I suspect that's hard.
It is hard. It's a muscle,
Yep.
it's a hygiene, and it doesn't come innately to some HR leaders. You have kind of the pendulum swing of HR leaders that are very, very operational heavy, which is important, of course. Then you have all the other side, which is the quote unquote fluff, the feeling.
Yeah.
You have to be centered. And that's probably true for any leadership role. You need to be balanced and centered.
She's super referenceable in a lot of ways, but Kim Scott and the whole like radical candor and
big fan.
like ruinous empathy, right?
Yep.
And I talked about this with peers of mine that work at Trove, but also in past companies where I always thought that my superpower was people and being sort of like being high on the EQ scale. But I think that early in my career, I was so far off the scale, or tried to be so empathetic, that it became ruinous. At the point where I remember we had, at a prior company that I was at, I had to let somebody go for performance. And I let them go, or what I thought was letting them go. Well, they didn't leave. And my CEO came to me and he was like, hey man, the next day, did you fire so-and-so? And I was like, yeah, of course, what are you talking about? Well, they're still here. And he doesn't think that you fired him.
Oh no.
Because I was trying to be so good at like, I'm so sorry, whatever it is that I said to make him feel safe and comfortable. And I didn't, I wanted to be a people pleaser. I didn't want him to be disappointed at me. And so therefore, somehow, whatever it is, years ago, it was misconstrued as some sort of feedback and not an actual termination of employment. And that was an awakening for me, I think, largely because I was like, oh, I can have high EQ, but I also have to balance it with like the realities of what our business is, or what we need out of people, and that's hard, right? I think that was an extreme example, but I think that's for some people it's really hard.
Yes, but for your personality type,
yes,
for sure. I encounter a lot of that in managers, and especially first-time managers. Yeah, leadership is hard. But back to like the radical candor framework, which I love, and implementing a CloudZero, which is a lot of fun, is people will respect you more if you're just honest with them. And it doesn't mean you have to be a jerk, but being honest with someone that's when the paths change for someone, right? And it's those moments that people remember in a great way forever.
Let's shift a little bit. The world has changed. This is very cliche, right? But the world has changed in the last couple of years.
It needs to, yeah.
AI is obviously sort of at the forefront of a lot of this, and that's shifting the way that employees are working. I'm sure CloudZero and other places, it's shifting the way that people are getting hired and looking for opportunities. It's shifting the way that, especially again in tech companies, the way that, whether it's a scapegoat or not, a lot of layoffs, a lot of reduction in forces, a lot of sort of, hey, we're going to compress the team to refocus our efforts around getting great at AI. Or my favorite example of Allbirds, the shoe company, pivoting and becoming some sort of like an AI infrastructure company. If we switch gears and we put ourselves in the seat of folks that are either employed or unemployed and looking for work, how do you begin to evaluate how maybe you stand out, or how you start to look for opportunities in a world that feels very different when you get thousands of applications at a time? I hear you speak, I'm like, I really want to work for you. How the heck do I get in touch with you? How do I make myself valuable to an organization like CloudZero?
Couple things come to mind. Number one, how your personal brand, right? How do you amplify your background, your connections, what you're proud of, your experiences. And number two is networking. I think the days of applying to a role online and hoping it sticks, unfortunately, are gone. May vary on the industry, but I can only speak to tech. Very, very difficult to land a job that way. And so it's who you know, and you need a network. And if you don't know someone, attend events, conferences, take the time to create those connections. And over time, you will amplify your own brand and stand out more. You also need to hone in on your skills and amplify that as well. The market and the candidate profile has shifted dramatically, and not just on the external side, internally too. It's become much more skills based than tenure and title. While those can matter, it's more about what are those specialized skills and how modern are you in your work that will be able to keep up with the pace of modern organizations. And so back to how do you kind of advertise that for yourself and create those connections is you need to really hone in on those skills. What can you bring to the table that's unique? And thinking outside of the box in that, let's say you're a marketing professional, don't just think about traditional marketing skill set. Think about what if you went into business operations? What are those skill sets? Think about how work gets done and what are those internal partnerships between marketing? Maybe it's marketing, sales, customer success, finance. Think about the skill set needed in those departments and how that can be incorporated in your career trajectory and then sell that.
Yeah. So it's interesting in the way that like maybe like roles are evolving, they're becoming less,
Very much.
like the walls are coming down,
Right.
whatever role, like maybe except for some very specialized ones, right? It doesn't have to be about CloudZero necessarily, but are there things that you're looking out at into the future and trying to predict in terms of, hey, we're going to need people that have this type of skill that's not even in the marketplace, right? To the point about like marketing operations or rev ops or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, what is like, how do you think about the world in terms of what's needed now versus what maybe has been needed in the past?
Strategic thinking, critical thinking, that human judgment piece is
Pesky human judgment.
so important because our day-to-day task operational work is becoming automated. I think that's a great thing, but it requires the human in that role to up-level themselves and actually be far more technical than ever before. And I'm talking more about non-engineers, right?
Yep.
Far more technical, far more interpersonal, and far more strategic. And I also think about the management role in the traditional sense. This is supervisory role that's been around since like the early, 1930s, right? That's going away in the traditional sense. What it's morphing into is much more about decision making, outcomes driven work, where the automation and the quote unquote like talk me through your day and what did you do today, and the operational element is going away, and it's much more focused on the outcomes that the individual's actually driving and the decision making behind that.
My always, I think, school of thought and what was sort of driven into my brain is focus on the process, and the outcome or the score, if you will sort of take care of itself, right? But what you're saying is, basically maybe not completely opposite of that, is look like, and I think AI helps you do this, which is
Right.
we actually do care, assuming that you're not an idiot and you're not getting the process incredibly wrong, which you probably shouldn't be, right? As with AI, is like the outcome should be more, I don't know, obvious.
Yeah.
Should be more front and center. Is that fair?
Yeah, very.
That's hard,
It is hard.
right?
It's an adjustment.
Yeah, totally.
But I think the newer grads
Sure.
going into the workforce is fascinating. You think about your traditional entry level role, still very much exists, by the way. Like the headline saying it's completely getting scratched off the table. No, not yet. And maybe in some organizations, maybe they're experimenting.
Sure.
But I think it's an exciting opportunity for entry-level roles to morph into much more senior level roles. If you think about that 0 to 2 years of required experience, it's shifting into that 3 to 5 years because before individuals get into full-time permanent roles,
Yeah.
internships are actually starting a lot earlier. And within internships, you're getting much more AI experience. And by the way, I have a 9 and 12-year-old, they're using AI in school. So those skill sets are getting built early. And so by the time one graduates, they have internships under their belt. They already have the years of experience. So they can go, instead of a junior level software engineer, they go straight into potentially a senior software engineer and get to work on that scope of work right from the get-go. So there's a shift happening, which again, I think is really exciting.
Do you miss out on, or what I worry about on some level is that you miss out on the early parts of maybe failure in your career that is so powerful in terms of guiding a next move of like, okay, well, I failed at that thing and I don't know why, but let me figure out why. Now, does the failure, is it reduced or is it failure? Anyways, I don't know if I've thought about that enough, but what do you think?
I think failure can always happen regardless how old one is, what role they're in, what level they're in. It goes back to the human. And do they have the self-awareness? Do they have a growth mindset?
Yep.
Are they actually learning from that experience? But failure happens, I know to me, probably daily.
Yep.
So I think it always exists. But I do think, to your point, is there a downfall? Yeah, I think there's to almost anything, especially in a dramatic shift like this that we're experiencing. I think the equitable piece I worry about.
Say more about that.
Not everyone can learn at the same rate. Not everyone has the same opportunity. Not everyone can go to a traditional college, right? Not everyone has those opportunities to get that exposure. And so will the market become inequitable, where you have one population that thrives and one that doesn't? And we'd see that today, of course, too.
I would agree. I mean, I think that AI will likely shine a bigger light or a brighter light on the haves and the have-nots. You mentioned the idea of growth mindset a couple times. What does that mean?
It means being open-minded to new ideas. It means wanting to genuinely want to be a better person as you experience life, but never stop learning way of living.
Love that. Is that something you're born with or you can develop?
I think probably develop. I think, in my opinion, I think it's how you're raised. I think it's experiences that shape your own reality. I think if you're lucky, mentors, guides, coaches, great managers along the way. Um, and I think negative experiences can actually cause more fixed mindsets in life.
My sense is this is clearly something you look for in terms of when people apply to a role or
Very much.
okay. How do I demonstrate that?
Yeah, I mean, this is assuming you're already in the interview loop, because that's hard to tell with just someone's LinkedIn profile. But assuming you're in the interview loop, it's what are those attributes? So, are you self-aware?
Yep.
Number one. How do you carry yourself? What is your personal brand? Are you actively listening to the questions being asked,
Yeah.
or are you just trying to dominate the conversation? There are other behavioral nuances like, do they take the time to give examples, concrete examples of ways in which they learned something or did something differently based on someone's feedback? How do they deal with feedback? All sorts, from constructive to celebratory. How do they react to it? So through those scenario, like situationally based interview questions, you can really tap into those traits
I love it.
pretty quickly.
Yeah, I love it. Cool. HR can, I think I say average employee in terms of not being in an HR department, it can sometimes feel like a bit of a black box
Sure.
in terms of both like decisions that are being made, whether it's compensation, whether it's, hey, we have to make changes to the organization, we have to let people go, right, in a riff or something like that. What should they know about it that they maybe don't?
That we actually care about you.
Okay.
That business decisions are made, yes, with a business lens,
Yes.
but with a people lens. And that topic comes up 100% of the time when making any sort of organizational decisions. That we actually care about your experience. We want you to stay at the company. We want to see you flourish and thrive. Nothing is done maliciously. There's no ulterior motive or hidden agenda. Now, does that happen in some companies? Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
And in HR, every single day, you have to break the stigma. You have to break the stigma that HR is just hiring and firing.
Because my view was always, oh, HR is like the bad cop. And I think that at its core, you can correct me if I'm wrong because I'm not in HR, like you exist on some level to protect the company.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. But I also get that, to your point, like that doesn't automatically mean that we want to do wrong by our employees.
That's right.
Because the business succeeds with great employees. Last thing, what is like, and maybe in HR, like recruiting, talent, people, whatever, culture, like what is something that you all get wrong? What do HR teams get wrong?
It's a good question.
Thank you.
I think HR people a lot of them are innately inquisitive and have this almost like sixth sense, spidey sense. And sometimes we get that wrong. And we have to remind ourselves, operate not based on assumptions, operate based on facts. What do you know to be true? And don't play this he said, she said game, and don't play into the workplace drama. And just because one person says something doesn't mean everyone thinks that. And that comes with experience. I think early on in my HR career, I definitely fell into that trap and overgeneralized sentiment. And through experience, I've quickly learned you should not operate that way, but also just having much more balanced view on what you know to be true. Yes, the spidey sense is absolutely a strength, and you should listen to it, but don't let that outweigh the truth.
I love it. I think that's, you remind me of something. I think another like lesson that I had to learn the hard way, Aaron and I, like I have some colleagues that we all have worked together in the past as well. And we worked with a guy, Patrick Campbell, who was my co-founder of ProfitWell. He would say to me, hey man, you keep starting these drama triangles.
I love the drama triangle. Are you familiar with the framework?
Well, I was not, but now I am.
Yes. It's 3. So there are 3 states. There's a persecutor, there's a rescuer, and there's the victim.
Go ahead and guess which one I was.
Victim.
No. I was a rescuer.
Persecutor.
No.
Oh, crap.
Damn it. That didn't land well. Yeah.
Got it.
I was always like the one that people would come to. Patrick was
Rescuer.
like,
Okay.
yes. He drove a tight ship. It wasn't bad. He just he was operating 100 miles an hour. We got to get shit done. And sometimes that meant you were rough around the edges. People come to me and say, hey man, Patrick was mean to me. And I'd be like, hey Patrick, John said you were mean to him. And he's like, dude, what the fuck are we talking about? I wasn't mean to John. Do you want to call John right now? I'd be like, okay. And John would be like, well, he wasn't really mean. I just got my feelings hurt. Okay. And so now I've created this drama.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
I'm a huge fan. It's a great training, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what would happen. So
do you know how to shift out of it?
No, I just tell people to fuck themselves at this point.
It's called the challenger, and which is also used in sales, different variety, but you shift out of it by asking questions, right? Don't just justify behavior. You're right.
Yeah.
She is mean.